Hi guys, we're on the Macros Bodybuilding and Powerlifting podcast. I'm here with my man Mark Newcomb again. Say hi, Mark.
Hey guys, how we doing?
So today on the podcast, we're kind of scratching our head thinking, what can we talk about that's kind of interesting and relevant at the moment? And although in the last few weeks, actually even months, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, have come up. And all of these Fitbits and everything have been very popular recently. Well, Pokemon Go has literally just gone and is kind of gone crazy. I downloaded it yesterday as it became available in the UK. I love Pokemon. And I think Mark also has it now.
Yeah, I do.
So Pokemon Go, for those that don't know what it is essentially on your phone. It's an app that it's playing a game. You basically walk around trying to find Pokemon. You literally, like on the game, you used to just move Ash or whoever you had, probably Ash, walking around. And now you're actually that character. You're walking around, you're trying to find Pokemon in your back garden. I caught Charmander yesterday in my back garden because you have to catch Charmander. Yeah. Some people like Squirtle, he's all right, but you're not a Bulbasaur man, are you, Mark?
No, man. Pikachu for me.
Pikachu. So
it's everyone's favorite.
The fat yellow mouse. So yeah, in sense, I haven't played it enough to know the insides and outs of it, but I think you get experience from walking around. You get points from kind of looking at sites around near you, which is really quite cool. But essentially, it's getting people moving, getting people active. It's kind of gamification of sport and exercise, which I think is a great thing because it's getting people more active. It's kind of like the Wii Fit or something where people would play sport indoors. And it's kind of like people like to shame it and laugh at it, but if it's getting people moving more without really thinking about it and they're just enjoying it, I think it's a great thing. What are your thoughts on it, Mark?
I'm much the same as yourself, actually. If it's encouraging kids or even people our age, as you said, you've downloaded it, I've downloaded it. If people are getting outside and moving around, running around, playing the game, it's making them more active, it's making them more healthy, then I can only see it as a positive thing. I think we've also just came through, or we're going through a generation of kind of indoor people or kids at the moment. And, out with kind of going to school, kids aren't really playing sports or interacting with sports or going outside like they used to. It's all indoor stuffs on computer games. And yeah, if this is another way that they can get back outdoors and kind of have some fun, keep fit and healthy, then yeah, I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably useful to explain for the listeners who don't know what non-exercise activity thermogenesis is. And it's essentially anything outside of like actual sport, or you're going out for a run, you're going to the gym. This is general activity like going for a walk, playing a game, because Pokemon Go isn't meant going and playing football with your mates. It's literally like going and just adventuring outside, being outdoors in the fresh air. And I think that's really important because I think average physical activity is around 30% of your complete metabolic rate, how many calories you burn in a day. So the fact that you control that portion, you can't control really your BMR very much. Yeah. You can't really control the amount you burn through your diet because thermic effect of food is always going to be pretty small. So then the thing you've got most control over is physical activity. And we can only do so much in the gym and playing sports, and they're very kind of tough and kind of higher intensity. Yeah. Whereas if we can just be more active generally through the day, I think it's a great thing. Mark, what are your thoughts when you playing this as like a way to actually increase their NEAT and they're not actually playing it for a game? Do you think people are thinking like that? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, I don't think people are probably not considering NEAT at all when they're playing the game. But if it's going to increase NEAT, inadvertently by playing the game, then yeah, I think one of the things that, because like you said, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, it's such a massive part of our overall daily expenditure, and just having, if we can control that and add to that, I think most people now, or most people that we kind of work with, are pretty sedentary anyway. Probably go to work, sit about a lot at a desk, come home, probably sit a lot at home, and I think people really underestimate the kind of impact of NEAT in their overall health and diet and fitness. So yeah, like I said, anything that's going to increase that, whether they're thinking about it as a deliberate action or not, then it's a positive thing. And like I said, NEAT is, I know you said around 30% of your kind of total daily energy expenditure. It's a massive percentage. And it's one of the things where it's the kind of, everyone knows the guy who, or the people who never seem to put on any body fat, and they're always kind of lean, or never gain weight, but they're always they're always eating kind of a lot, and these people get, some people are quite jealous of them. I'm quite jealous of them, but the reason is these guys they just burn a lot of calories through their NEAT. So through that non-exercise thermogenesis, they're always doing something. These people are, they're buzzing around at work, they're coming home, they're going out and they're cutting the grass, they're always fidgeting, they're doing all these things. And yeah, it's just a massive part of your overall expenditure. So yeah, anything that gets that up and people are getting active, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, like you touched on, different people's NEAT can vary by huge amounts. I know when I went to the Personal Trainer Collective conference, and James Krieger did a presentation on it, and there was a graph that he showed, and I forget the exact difference, but it was I think it was thousands of calories difference in NEAT between people. And that can come down largely to your lifestyle. So if you've got an active job, do you walk to work? Would you get the car to work? Like you said, a lot of people are in kind of public transportation to work. They're getting it back. They're then sitting down to dinner. So then their NEAT, their kind of subconscious activity that they're doing is nothing. So people get really disheartened because they're like, oh, but I'm going to the gym, spending an hour at the gym. I'm watching my diet. They have so much extra energy they could be expending. Even I think James Krieger had the figures between the difference of sitting and standing. The difference between sitting and standing wasn't huge, but the difference between sitting and standing and fidgeting was massive. So you burn so much more if you're actually just moving around. You see these people, like you said, who always look like they never put on weight. And I bet you if you watch them at work, you'll have that person who's always skinny in the office, and they'll be tapping their leg, they'll be shifting around their chair, they'll be getting up, going to the loo. Whereas I bet their posture is actually better. They actually sit and use muscles. Whereas some people are just slouching down on on Pokemon Talk, a bit like a Slowpoke or a Snorlax or something.
And it's absolutely right. And just going back to the James Krieger point, I think I couldn't say the exact numbers, but even taking into consideration lifestyle factors. So, you get people who are just more active because they're doing more things, like housework, cutting the grass, walking, whatever. But one of the studies that I can remember, and it's from a James Krieger podcast or webinar, it was two people put in literally the same room. So it reads like
metabolic wards, or
literally access to the same stuff. It was one chair, one bed, one toilet. So they had literally the same access to everything. And I think the difference in NEAT or calories burned from one person, it was 800-900. It was 1,000 calories. which is a huge amount. Yes,
That's
it just goes to show you how dramatic non-exercise activity thermogenesis can be between two people. And I have to say that was one thing. If there's one thing I've paid particular attention to this year, even with myself and my own clients, is NEAT. Probably more so than I've probably ever done, just based around James Krieger's work and following the work that he's doing at the moment, or presenting at the moment.
Yeah, I can completely, I know exactly the presentation you're talking about. I think you probably saw the webinar version of the presentation I saw, and they're in like the same room, tiny rooms, and it's ridiculous. And it just goes to show how much like genetics actually plays a big role in your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It just does. Some people, I think James called it neato types. So people who they're just moving all the time, they've just burned all these calories, which is awesome for them. But then there's people who are just like sluggish. They just don't want to burn anything. And yeah, I guess that would be like your Slowpoke or Snorlax if you're a Pokemon, and then your one moving all around. Pikachu's pretty active. Just to put it into people's minds and perspectives of like how much a big impact that can have. But that's why the game is so important, because it's making people actually move who maybe wouldn't normally. So they're getting than maybe playing on another app like Tetris or something on their phone that's just tapping their finger. Whereas if they can move their entire body, get outside, and hopefully be with like friends as well, it can make burning energy and being active, which are what humans are meant to do. We're not meant to be sedentary like from when we were first like cavemen and stuff. We were moving around all the time. So I think it's a really positive thing, and I think Pokemon got onto a really great thing, because I think Fitbits have tried, and they tried to kind of gamify it, but I think it almost was too much like exercise. So you'd have your step count on your Fitbit, and you'd have like how many calories you supposedly burned and how many stairs you'd gone up, and it would beep at you if you hadn't moved enough. Whereas think you have to do something and you just do it for pleasure. I think that reward is a lot more rewarding than anything else.
Completely agree. Like I said, it's almost it's exercise without it feeling like exercise, especially for kind of younger kids and things. I think it's brilliant. I don't think it'll be the last thing like this either. I think there'll be a lot more of these apps coming out with a similar theme, and people will laugh and criticize it, but I really can't see any argument against it. I think if it's, like you said, if people are outside socializing and getting healthier, so it's a massively positive thing. Everyone's got an iPhone or Android type of phone, and I certainly don't think it won't stop at the Pokemon either. I think there will be more, and I think it's only a good thing.
What it really reminds me of, in fact, was, I don't know if you ever had it, they're like Digimon, where they used to fight each other. So it's like a gotchi type thing. And I used to have one where it was basically a pedometer. So you'd put it on, and I'd have to walk to kind of get it to eventually get into a battle or something. I don't think they were all that popular. I think I might have even purchased it in America, but it was literally a pedometer, and every like 1,000 steps, that's when like a battle would arise, and I'd be able to use it and play with it. And I used to shake it to try and get the steps up instead of actually walking. But it was amazing. I remember actually having it at university, which is how sad I was and how much of a nerd I am, and would put it on my shorts when I went out for a 10-kilometer run and be like, yeah, I've got so much experience because I did all those steps through running. And it just goes to show, because I would have done the run anyway, but just having that incentive that it was a game and like I was going to get this reward from it, it made me do it so much more. And like that, I think, is huge. I think that is something that needs to be more positively kind of put out there. And hopefully it's just the start for things right now. When you talked about yourself taking more attention to your own NEAT and I think you probably were going to talk about how you use it with your clients. Do you have any approaches that you specifically do with that? Do you kind of monitor steps or get them to kind of, do you have any activities like after dinner, go for a walk around the block? How do you kind of strategize that?
So even things like, if they've got a dog, they could try and take the dog out an extra time a day, or, I mean, as much as these Fitbits can be inaccurate in pretty much all their readouts, I think what I've found works quite well with people, especially sedentary people looking to increase their NEAT, or even just going for a walk. Like you said about the little vibration you get after like 10,000 steps, or after their targeted step count. I've found just by getting some feedback that when people achieve that step count and they get their little vibration on their wrist or whatever, they feel quite proud of themselves, because it's an achievement for them. They've probably never done that amount of steps before, and if they get 5 buzzes in a row, so Monday to Friday, and they've done it 5 times in a row, although it's not 100%, and I think one of the things I would explain is that they're not 100%, and the step count can be affected by even just the way I'm moving now could register as a step.
Mm-hmm.
Exercising could register as a step. There's lots of things that could register as a step. Probably wouldn't look at the heart rate and things in too much detail again, because it could be very inaccurate. But as a kind of ballpark figure, I've found that the Fitbits do generally work well with people who struggle to get out and walk or be active. I know myself, so I only recently purchased one, probably going back a few months now, and I actually got a surprise at how inactive I was. I got a big surprise. I just thought, being a personal trainer, I'm walking about the gym all day. But the thing about that is I'm also coming home from work pretty tired. So I'm sitting on a lot in the evenings. And yeah, I think when I first put the Fitbit on, I don't think I was getting 4,000 or 5,000 steps in a day. And yeah, it was crazy low. And I also, it could have been around the time I was also in a dieting phase as well, which I know my NEAT would have been down anyway. I was looking for an excuse to kind of sit down, just subconsciously looking back. So it probably wasn't a true reflection of my actual activity at the time. But yeah, I definitely find now I make a point every day. I've got spaces in my diary that I go for a walk, just get the steps in. And I've started to do these things with my clients now. Even at their dinner time, they can go for a walk, or after work, before work, whenever they kind of prefer. And whenever they can fit it in, it's not going to kind of impact their lives too much. And yeah, they enjoy it. It's just a really good. I really like it. It's kind of my downtime as well.
Yeah.
And they seem to enjoy it too.
I think you touched on some great points there, especially kind of the fact that it's rewarding, but also the fact that I think, like we measure kind of girth measurements, we have the weight scale, we have calories, we have macros, we have how your energy levels, how is your performance in the gym, how are you sleeping, how is your accuracy. Kind of step counts is just another amazing tool to keep in your toolbox. And because steps are such a good reflection of what your kind of NEAT is, it can really allow you to monitor that. And even if you're just monitoring it, for some people, I don't even get them to kind of hit a target. I monitor it, see how they're doing. And then if fat loss stalls and they're like, I don't want to cut my calories lower, I don't want to kind of do any more cardio, I'm just like, get your step count up, increase, like double your steps. If they're hitting 5,000, hit 10,000 on average for the week. Yeah. And it's a great way to just get in some more, burning more energy. And like you said, when you're dieting, When I remember when I dieted for my contest prep, I do my gym session, I do my cardio, and then I'd sit down. I'd just be like, nah, I'm not moving anymore. I'm too tired. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's actually been studies where people will do all this exercise and they compensate for it.
Yeah.
They either compensate by overeating or they compensate by just being an absolute lazy slob, which is easy to fall into, especially when your body's trying to drive down all your energy expenditure when it doesn't want to lose weight, especially in bodybuilding prep or something like that, where people get into really lean levels. And of course, you can implement refeeds and diet breaks. But by just monitoring how many steps you're doing, you can almost be like aware that you're subconsciously decreasing your activity, and you can always make yourself conscious of it again. So yeah, things I have done with myself is I was like you. If I didn't go for a morning walk in the day, my step count would be like 4,000. Whereas now I hit around 8,000 steps. And I try and get it up to like 10 to 20,000 on the weekend, just to try and be outside and active.
Yeah.
And I feel much better for it. I actually enjoy listening to podcasts and walking. It's much more enjoyable. I Snapchat while I'm on my walks like you do well. And you can make kind of it a productive time as well as kind of making your energy expenditure productive, which is what the game's doing, which is fantastic. And I think it's a really, really good, the missing link between kind of diet and exercise becomes non-energy activity thermogenesis. And then if you can put it into someone's life where it becomes part of their lifestyle, so maybe it's a game, or rather than Snapchatting at home, I Snapchat on the walk, or maybe rather than kind of getting the tube to work, you walk to work, or get the cycle to work, or part of the journey. Just so as soon as you make it part of your habits and your lifestyle, I think that's where it's a game changer. And I think the problem with Pokemon Go, maybe, for example, and Fitbits is that they might just die off and they're like exciting for a period of time and people will wait for something new to come along. But hopefully with this day and age, new things are coming out all the time. So
yeah, you're right. But hopefully not. And hopefully it is something, because, you know, I think it just saves people from making panic decisions as well. If you've got kind of no idea what your NEAT is, or your step count, for example, and you plateau and you've not lost weight for a while, a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and you feel like you've really given it a lot in the gym. Like you said, they're training hard in the gym and they're getting their cardio in maybe, but what are they doing outside that times? And then they'll make panic decisions by either like going super crazy with the cardio, or adding another resistance session in when they're already beat up, dropping calories. So like you said, it's just another tool that you've got in the kit for monitoring and adjusting kind of where necessary. So as much information, you know, if you're serious about body composition or gaining fat or building muscle, then having an extra tool, having as much data available as possible, I think is really handy. In step counts, I think is definitely one of them. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any negative aspects apart from the fact, actually, I have got some negatives of maybe step counts and Fitbits, not necessarily a Pokemon Go, because I don't think it's related to that. But I do think, and I've had actually a client who's come to me and said they think they're obsessed with their Fitbit. It's affecting how their day goes. If they don't hit their step count by a certain time in the day, they feel demoralized. They feel like they haven't done enough. Or maybe there was also the fact, because it monitors your heart rate, and they're in the gym and they said, if my heart rate didn't go up to a certain amount during my session, I felt like I hadn't worked hard enough. Yeah. And they almost had forgotten how they felt. They didn't really think of how intense they felt they'd been pushing, or they lost sight of how their gym performance was and how they were looking in the mirror. And they were almost so focused on this one like tool telling them how their day had gone, rather than actually like experiencing the day. Like they were on, I think they were cycling. He was cycling with his family and they were on their bikes, and he was like, when he was on his bike with his wife on his side and children around him, looking at his heart rate and thinking, oh, I need to get that up, rather than kind of enjoying the experience with his like loved ones, which I think's where these Fitbits and these tools can almost go too far where people get, so I think a certain type of person, maybe someone like myself, because I think I probably am this type of person, gets a bit too attached to it and obsessive with it. And it's just like the scale, the weight scale, just like your food scale, just like tracking macros. You don't want to get too caught in it all, because I think then it can become damaging. And even another example is I have had women come to me, it's normally women, who've been dieting for a very, very long time. And so I advise them to increase a bit more respect and feed it, because you need to fuel your body. And they don't subconsciously just increase their step count, they consciously increase their step count. But I've seen it triple. And I'm like, your NEAT can't increase that much from a slight overfeeding. And they've said they've consciously tried to increase their step count to kind of compensate. And it gets into that exercise compensation again. Have you had any experience with that, Mark? Got any thoughts on kind of the negatives of this sort of thing?
I haven't personally dealt with a client who's had that level of attachment with their Fitbit, but I have had that with the scale. And I think it's important to then suggest, like, for example, if somebody's getting super bogged down with what the scales are saying, and it's starting to become, you know, if they're not seeing weight loss daily, and it's starting to get to the point where they're still going to work, and by the time they get to work, they're still thinking about what the scale said, or they're hopping on the scales 2 or 3 times in a row to try and get to see a certain number. I think, although the scale is a handy tool, then as a coach, I'd probably be saying, okay, let's take a batteries out the scale for a while, put it away, and let's maybe focus on something else, girth measurements, or, you know, just the way they look in the mirror. But for some people, in that kind of people that you talk about, the people who get an emotional attachment with this tools that we're talking about, sometimes I've found with scale weight, I know this is getting away from the NEAT topic, but with the scale weight, it almost doesn't matter what the measurements are saying, or how they look in the mirror, or if their clothes are getting looser, or if you're gaining muscle, your clothes are getting tighter. It almost doesn't matter. What they get the attachment with is what the scale says, and I find that quite fascinating, and it's something that we've got to be careful with as coaches, not to get. We're trying to help people. We want to enhance their lives, and we don't want them to be going to work or stressing about what their body weight is. So yeah, we've got to kind of be careful in that area. With regards to the Fitbit, I'd probably recommend the same thing. If it was getting to a point where they were not enjoying social activities for what they should be, without looking at their heart rate monitors or whatever, I'd probably suggest, like, let's try and have a spell where we don't, you know, use these Fitbits or heart rate monitors, and let's try to get the feel back into it. How do you feel in your session? What's your body telling you in your session? If you feel like if you genuinely feel like you're working hard enough, then you probably are. And regardless of what number says on your wrist, kind of thing. And I think it's just about dealing with the person.
That's exactly what we did. I mean, that's exactly what we did. We removed, I just said to him, he likes watches, go and buy a nice watch, replace that one, and only wear it use it now and then as a tool. Just like all of them, you can't place too much emphasis on one thing. Just like you said, as a coach, you have to, a lot of the time, because we're online, a lot of our coaching is done online, and so we can't kind of be with them, taking them through things. And so we use a lot of tools to try and track things. So we do use all of these things for us. So you may even start imposing a dependence on a weighing scale that you hadn't meant to, and they hadn't had before. So you have to almost explain to them and make sure they know that your weight can fluctuate. Don't put too much emphasis on that. And I think almost that's where coaching can come into its own. With good coaches, they can explain this to their client. They can almost handhold them through a period of time, and they can start trusting the process. Yes. I think a lot of people might even try and do it themselves. They weigh themselves and then they get disheartened. They might not even be doing it quite right. They might be weighing in at evening and in the morning or infrequently, and then getting really and hating the scale and thinking, oh, I should throw it away. Whereas it's just like any tool. It's like if you track your macros correctly, it's great. But if you fall into a trap and you make mistakes, or if you try and do it in a weird and wacky way and you don't know the fundamentals behind it, or even the scientific foundational things, then you get into a really, really tricky situation. And I think it, like you said, it's having an awareness that these are all tools. They don't tell exactly what you're doing or how you're progressing. And if you are finding they're stressing you more than helping, just remove them, because the best thing to tell you how you're progressing is how you feel. Because at the end of the day, as soft as it sounds, we do all of this health and fitness stuff to make ourselves feel. And I think it's just, another example is like when you go into the gym, and I really like auto-regulating workouts. So people go towards an RPE and they go to a certain level of fatigue. So rather than kind of going in and saying, oh, I have to hit 5 reps with that weight, they go into the gym and see, oh, I've got that weight, I can hit as many reps as I can until I hit that point of fatigue. And so they can go into the gym and never have a bad workout. Whereas someone else who's seen these figures that they have to hit, if they don't hit it, they're like, right, awful session, I feel like crap. So it's, if you have an understanding that you have those figures and then there's an RPE related to that, then they might be okay. But if they just know that they're meant to, they failed, then
the auto regulation for me is a big one for clients. You know, some people come in to the gym. You know, you've got that sessions where you feel like you can lift everything and everything's great. Great session and everything's fine, no problems at all. Great. Whereas the next week you come in and you've maybe been up, the client's maybe been up a little bit later with the kids or whatever it is, didn't have time to eat anything before the gym, has had crazy times at work. And to give them a little bit of knowledge on what auto-regulation is and just kind of taking the session for what it is and how you feel in the day kind of thing. The last thing I want that person to be doing is leaving the gym thinking that was a really crap session, I failed in that session. Again, another tool, another really, really valuable tool in all this kind of process, which is something that I do try and explain to clients for sure.
And I think, like you said, it's how do you feel on that day? So when it comes down to steps, if people are like, okay, I want to hit 10,000 steps by the end of the week, or I want to hit that every day, I think it probably is a good idea to say, okay, on average, I want to hit 10,000 by the end of the week, because one day you might be feeling really, really down and like tired and not in the mood, or you might have so much going on that you don't have the time to do it. So if you give yourself a weekly average step count to hit, that's so much more attainable and achievable than having to think you have to hit this number every single day. And that's the same way with macros. Like you could have a weekly average you want to hit rather than trying to specifically hit it every day. The body doesn't work on a day by day. It doesn't punch time clocks. We know this. It's chronic. It's the chronic things that you do to your body that matter, not kind of the short-term things. So I think just like Pokemon Go is maybe a like flash in the pan. It's like a current trend that's trendy right now, and Neat might be even something that's trendy right now. I think as long as it becomes part of people's lifestyle where they expect, okay, so I was walking around outside playing this game before, whereas now I'm going to listen to a podcast. As soon as it becomes part of the lifestyle, I think that's the game changer. And that's part of what we do as coaches. We try and make kind of everything we do with their training and their nutrition is trying to push it and fit it around their lifestyle to mold them into the person they want to be without it being a negative. It's always positive.
Agree. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we probably killed Pokemon Go. We kind of covered quite a lot with Neat. And I think for me, the things I want people to take away is that Pokemon Go is amazing. Like, it's really good that the gamification of increasing your energy expenditure is really important, especially for younger children and kids. Like, the fact is obesity is rising and convenience food is so tasty and amazing that we need to somehow combat that. And Pokemon Go can be one way of doing that. So I wouldn't expect anyone to really hate against such a game that maybe it's not educational in like for the fullest, but it's definitely having a positive impact on people's lives. That NEAT itself is huge, 30% roughly for most people of the energy expenditure. Having some awareness of that can be a game changer, but not getting too obsessed with any of these tools. They are all just tools to be used together. And at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then don't do it. Pokemon Go could be a way to enjoy NEAT. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Mark?
No, I agree completely. Just making it enjoyable. And if, like you said, if Pokemon Go or anything else that comes along similar is doing that for people, then I think it's awesome. And yeah, I really can't see any negative argument against any of it. Like you said, it's a great way of increasing NEAT and making it feel like we're not really actually exercising, which is I think it's great.
Awesome. And I am only going to finish this with a bit of a lighter note. Did you collect Pokemon cards, Mark?
I absolutely collected Pokemon cards. I mean, I can remember specifically my mum taking, and I'm not sure how Scott will feel about this when I tell the world this story, but we went to, there was actually a Pokemon convention in an exhibition centre in Aberdeen.
Nice.
And we got my mum to take us along. Wow. I mean, must have been about 12 or 13, maybe just slightly younger. Queued for ages to get in, and it was kind of all the cards that you could never get a hold of. So like all the shiny cards that were just never going around, and but you could buy them. So obviously, Mum spent a fortune, got like a nice folder that we used to keep the cards in order.
Oh yeah.
We were super nerds with Pokemon. We used to get
Did you ever
friends
have a
around.
shiny Charizard?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. You could buy shiny Charizards from this convention. Yeah, we managed to collect them all and had them in a. Do you know what? I really wish I knew where that book was, because it's somewhere. In fact, if I find it, I'll post it online. Because it must be with Mum somewhere. It's a red. I'm sure it's a red folder. It's a proper Pokemon folder.
Oh yeah.
All the slots for all the cards, right through the whole lot of them. And we used to get people around and play games, battle games, and I was massive on Pokemon.
You played the game. I never played the card game.
Yeah. Like I said, super Pokemon nerd. Used to watch it on TV, watched all the films.
Oh, it was awesome.
Loved it, man. Loved it. So that's why when the Pokemon app came out, I don't know if it's just like something in myself. I was like, oh, I'm going to stay away from this because I don't have time. I literally don't have time to be running around chasing Pokemon. So I don't need another distraction right now. But I broke last night, and like I said, I downloaded it, and I thought I flicked through today. It looks awesome. It's actually raining right now. I'm looking outside and it's raining, which I'm pretty gutted about. But yeah, I'm gonna have a blast of this later on.
That's awesome. I never played the game because I don't know why. I was just too lazy, and I think I just found the cards amazing. But I did get 2 shiny Charizards, and I didn't buy any of them. I just got them in packets. I just bought a horrendous number of packets. But I remember even going as far to buying like the Japanese style ones, because in every Japanese style packet, you got 1 shiny. Yeah. And it was like, you didn't know what it said on there. You could just see the shiny image of this Pokemon that you had no idea what it was. But it was, the amount of money spent on that. And actually, I've got all my cards, and I know they're at home in the loft. So if Pokemon's on the up right now, I think I might be in with the money, because I think Charizard was worth like £100 or something back in the day.
Get it on eBay. In fact, it's funny because I'm pretty sure that I've had this discussion not so recently, but I can remember thinking that me and Scott had to rake out that book. There must be some money in there somewhere, if it was going to go on eBay. But yeah, Pokemon for the win, man. I love that thing. It's awesome.
Awesome. Right, we'll leave it there because we're probably not going to end up adding more value, but we're going to probably end up talking about Pokemon for ages if you loved it as much as me. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Mark, for coming on the show. And hopefully, guys, we're going to make this a weekly thing, and we may even try and incorporate a bit more of that sort of less fitness seriousness and try and end on a light note. But I hope everyone enjoyed that. And yeah, thanks, Mark.
Okay, no problem. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.